Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the webinar on European Research Council grants for top researchers from anywhere in the world, brought to you by EURAXESS Australia New Zealand and the European Research Council. We have almost 700 registrations for this session from 73 countries, including from Australia and New Zealand. So it's great to see such interest for the program. First of all, please allow me to introduce to you our esteemed guest speakers for today. We have with us Mr. Benjamin Pelletier, who is the project advisor and scientific officer at the European Research Council Executive Agency. He will help you understand the ERC and the different grants that is available for you to apply. Next up, we have with us Dr. Anna de Jong, who is a senior lecturer at the School of Social and Environmental Sustainability at the University of Glasgow. She will be sharing her insights as an ERC starting grantee. Finally, we have with us Professor Volker Hessel, who is a professor at the School of Chemical Engineering at the University of Adelaide, and he will be sharing insights as an ERC Synergy grantee. Thank you to all the speakers for joining us. We are very glad that you could take out the time to come and speak to us today. And I'm Nishant Sandile, Regional Coordinator for Australia and New Zealand at EURAXESS Worldwide. For those who have joined our webinar for the first time, EURAXESS is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. We provide free information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. Since all of you are watching this on your laptop or your phone, I'd encourage you to type EURAXESS Australia New Zealand on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube and follow us there. Now, before we begin, a few housekeeping things. I'd encourage all of you to please use the Q&A function, not the chat function in the interface, to ask any questions that you might have while our speakers are presenting, and we'll come back to take your questions after their presentation. As always, we will provide you the recording and the slides of the session. However, please note that the recording will not include the Q&A, and hence I'll recommend you to stay for the entire duration if you want to hear responses for the common queries that applicants have. Perfect. So I think with that exercise, it's a good segue for me to pass on the presenter privilege to Benjamin. Over to you, Benjamin, and the floor is yours.
Greeting from Brussels. Thank you for giving me the floor and the opportunity. Let me try to share my screen. So, good evening, everyone. So I'm Benjamin. I work as a scientific officer in European Research Council, and I'm here to introduce the program. So please bear with me because I'm from Brussels. I got a bit cold, but I hope my voice is still okay. And then my colleague prepared many slides, which I hope I can guide you through, but I will not go through all of them because that's a lot. So let's go. So this is, so I have four main chapters, let's say. So first, what is ERC? In a nutshell, ERC is an organization who funds researchers from anywhere in the world who want to make research in Europe. And the only criterion of evaluation, of selection, is excellence. That's, if you have one sentence to remember, is that one. So indeed, our general budget is 16 billion. We are part of Horizon Europe, which is a big program of research and innovation in the Commission for the year 21 to 27. In ERC, we are part of the European Commission, but we are a bit different. We have scientific governance, so we have 20 scientists who actually decide how we run things, how the evaluation is done. And then we have executive agency, which I'm part of, which is supposed to implement what the scientists decide. So what is important to know about ERC is that we, contrary to most of European programs, we are completely bottom-up. So it means that there's no priority, no goal, no nothing. It's just scientists who propose their own research. We believe that scientists know the best what should be their topic and what is relevant for their field. So that's why it's completely bottom-up for any discipline, any academic discipline. As you can see here, the 22 members of the Scientific Council They are virtually from any kind of discipline. And for instance, for me, since I'm in social science, I work especially with Giovanni Sartor and with the Vice President Evelyn Krohn, which is from psychology, cognitive science. So I will go very fast on this. This is the executive agency. My office is here if you want to come one day in Brussels. So few numbers just to give you an idea. So indeed, good quiz, Nishant. There's currently 89 different nationalities who receive a grant. Overall, we funded 13,000 researcher as a principal investigator, but also if you take into account the member of their team, 19,000 people. So it led to more than 220,000 articles, peer-reviewed articles in scientific journals, and we are in touch with 900 research institutions worldwide. So I had the great pleasure to update that slide because my colleague didn't update the news from last week. We are now 14 Nobel Prize. That was ERC grant holder because last week two Professor Lhuillier from physics and parents in physics 2, they got the Nobel Prize last week. All right, so this is so why ERC is good for you? Because first you choose your topic. 2, it's long-term grant, so it's for 5 years minimum. You can even ask extension. You get the prestige of the ERC grant, and there's portability, which means that you can move around in Europe. So if one host institution is not, or if you, I mean, for any reason you may have, it's not the host institution who decides, it's you who decide where to go. Where to go, of course, in European Union member state or associate countries. So also for people who are currently outside Europe, as you probably are, there's even extra fund to help the move. So you can ask up to 1 million more to start up, which means to move to Europe. You can also keep your current affiliation in Australia or New Zealand, or I saw some Thai names, so in Thailand, wherever you can keep your institutions. And what we ask you is to spend at least 50% of the time in Europe. Your team members, you can keep your co-author, you can keep your, your research assistant, because they can be based anywhere in the world. So only the grantee need to move within Europe at least 50% of the time in Europe and associated country. So now, how do we select projects? This is a structure of our teams, let's say. So well, it's a bit arbitrary. You can it's not again, it's not a priority, it's not a way, it's not a discipline we are targeting. It's just the way we are structured currently. So I'm based in the SH2 panel, which is institution, governance, legal system, which means political science and law. And I'm also in SH1, mostly in development economics. So that's my core expertise, and that's why I'm there, and that's why I'm dealing with proposal from that area. But you can see that you are virtually any topic, even I don't know, literature or musicology, or so we are very open-minded. So that's a new panel this year. This is SH8 here. This is a completely new panel that is, it will be open in 2024. So we have 5 grants. The 3 main ones are starting grants, consolidator grants, advanced grants. Those grants are based on seniority. Since how many years you got your PhD? Why is that? Is because we don't want you to compete if you just got your PhD 2 years ago. We don't want you to compete with a Nobel Prize. So that's why it's clustered in that way. You have also some reason of extension of the eligibility windows. For instance, if you got a paternity or maternity leave, long-term sickness, and so on. So it's not like completely rigid, but that's the principle. So for starting grants, it's 1.5 million for 5 years, consolidator 2 million, and advanced grant 2.5 million. And bear in mind that there's this extra million for starting up, and also there's also a possibility to ask extra fund for specific equipment. So I think our presenter here, there's one that is more in starting grant, and the other one is synergy grant, which I will go quickly through it also. Probably they will give more detail later on. So synergy grant is 2 to 4 principal investigators from different disciplines working together on a topic. One PI can be from outside EU and still be based outside EU. That's a very big budget, 10 million for 6 years. The duration is a bit longer. So the last grant is a proof of concept, and this is when you had the grant and then you had an idea that can be implemented, an innovation. So this is to help you to do the transition between fundamental research and something that is, that can live in the market. Okay, so excellence, excellence, excellence. We only look the only criteria. So we have many debate every year. Should we try to favor ladies for gender equality? Should maybe favor people like countries that there's not many people applying? No, we have other scheme to help that. I have to say in social science and humanities, now the gender gap is maybe the other way around actually. But anyway, the sole evaluation criterion is excellence, excellence of the research project and excellence of the principal investigator, which means that is only based on what you bring in your proposal, what is your methodology, your scientific approach, what would be the impact on your field, what is your intellectual capacity and your time commitment and so on. So this maybe I will come back just if somebody are in process of applying, but basically there's two, these are the proposal or the way it's structured. About how it's organized, so it's two-step evaluation. First, we have the panel member here in Brussels. They are like between 15 and 18 people, 20 sometimes depending on number of proposals. We have a panel meeting. They all read the proposal to their place, and then we come in a meeting and we decided which one can go in step 2. Score B and C, they are rejected, and score A, they go in step 2. In between step 1 and step 2, we have to kind of be a sniper and find experts that are actually really at the core of the expertise of the proposal. We recruit, I forgot the number, but it's like every year it's like several thousand of experts to evaluate really close to the core expertise of the proposal. And then we decide which one is funded. There's an interview. The PI don't come to Brussels anymore, but sorry, the PI, the principal investigator. The applicants, they are online, and we make an interview, so it's allowed. It allows a panel member to really raise questions when they have doubt or something unclear or something that they disagree with, and that's it. The ones that are funded then are funded. So a few preconceived idea about ERC. So we are about fundamental research, what we call blue sky research. So we try to have, again, I'll repeat again because it's important, we don't point at any priority, but there is also applied research into it. It's just depending on the proposal you put forward. There's no priority also in the sense of the financial priority. So what we do, because we want to have success rate flat across every panel, so we are looking at how many proposals are submitted to each panel, and we cut the budget proportionally. So it means that the success rate is equal in every discipline. The publication record, is not what we are looking at. We signed the DORA manifest, so we don't look at, and especially for me in economics, people are really focused on top 5 journal, but this is not a criterion of evaluation for us. All right. So I will go quickly on. I will go through these the rumors, the preconceived ideas. All right. So let me. So this is just the date in case you want to apply. You can find it on a website. And what I want to focus now is what are the special implementing arrangement with Australia, because you don't need to be only an applicant to work with ERC. Actually, you have other possibility. So you can see here that we have 17 implementing arrangements, and Australia is part of it since 2018. You can see here our partner are the national. Oh, sorry, what happened? Okay. Yeah, our partner are the National Health and Medical Research Council and the Australian Research Council. So how it works, you can make long-term visits to people working on an ERC grant in Europe, or you can also make several short visits. The Australian or New Zealand researcher, not New Zealand, sorry, only Australian, they will receive some per diem and also help with travel expenses. And then ERC will also support some cost. The way it's done is that some principal investigator here in Europe, they express their interest of hosting somebody. Then ERC are in contact with your national funding agency, and then they publish a list of interest, of potential interest, and then you have to apply to those funding agencies, and then you can be staying with a research team in Europe. So it's a PI who select, and first the national funding agency, and then the PI who select. ERC have no decision into this, and I think I was too long already, so I will stop there. Actually, I just let this last slide before I pass back the floor to Nishant.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I think there was a lot of useful information that you have given us, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions that are coming in, and we will be able to take all these questions after our two presenters have presented their section. So now we will move into Anna, who is a successful ERC grantee, and she has received an ERC starting grant. I will pass the presenter privilege to you now, Anna, and then you can explain to you why you applied for the ERC starting grant and how you did it. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nishant. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Cool, thank you. So thanks for that introduction. My name's Anna de Jong. I'm a senior lecturer with the School of Social and Environmental Sustainability at the University of Glasgow. And I've been invited along today to answer two questions, the first of which is why I applied for the ERC starting grant, and the second, how I did it. So I'll speak to each in turn briefly. I've only got 10 minutes and there's a lot of things that I could discuss here. So happy to answer more questions in the Q&A. But why I applied, first off, there are a few key points. So first off, I was at a transition in my own career. I was moving out of that early career stage where I'd worked on a number of smaller projects that had been funded, but they had very specific topics. And as I moved to a mid-career, I was looking for a grant that would enable me to really have the time and the budget to bring that work together in a way that created a stronger research agenda for the work I wanted to do and a stronger research identity that I wanted to establish as a mid-career researcher. So that's where the ERC became particularly attractive to me because of the time and budget generosity that it has. There were a couple of other points that Benjamin actually touched on that were really enticing to me as well. The first off is the fact that it had an academic remit, and the second, that it had a bottom-up focus. There was no predetermined priorities. So often when you come across funding schemes, they are quite prescriptive. I'm based in the UK, and that's particularly the case through the UK Research Institute, where they have agendas that are in line with national priorities. What I really wanted to do was bring to question a way of thinking within the area of research that I work, and be quite radical with that push around the way that ideas were approached in my research area. So it wasn't so much focused on kind of social impact from the project itself, but rethinking a field that would then have impact longer term, but beyond the project itself. And I also was very attracted to the idea of not having to, fit my idea within very specific criteria. Benjamin touched on the idea that the only criteria is excellence, and that's very rare and a really kind of valuable opportunity as a researcher to be able to put your ideas together in a way that really makes sense for the project itself, as opposed to what makes sense for the funding stream. And the last point here was the timing. So I was coming up to 6-7 years post PhD. This was going to be the last year that I would actually be eligible to go for the starting grant. So I had 6-7 years of full-time academic positions where I'd build up outputs, I'd build up networks, I'd built out my expertise in different methods, working in different geographical areas, all of those sorts of things. So I could arguably build a case that I was the person to do this research in a way that someone that was, say, 2 years or 3 years post PhD would have a potentially harder time to do. Not that it's impossible, but there was a little bit of strategic thinking there as well, rather than kind of waiting another year and going for the next grant up. I've forgotten the name of it. Sorry, someone can correct me. So that was something else that was in my mind to go for it this specific year when I was in that last year of eligibility. So moving here to how I did it, I mean, it is quite a time-consuming process. So, and there's a lot of things that I did, but here I think the two takeaway messages that I want to highlight is the first of which is really understand and learn the grant. And obviously you'll have an understanding of the importance of this having come along today. But really before you even begin writing, make sure that you do your research. And I've got this kind of line here, research, 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 research. And what I mean by that is try and find as much information about the ERC as possible before you even begin writing, because there's some key concepts and very specific terminology that is related to the ERC grants that you really need to understand to ensure those concepts and ideas are woven through your application. One of which is this concept of high risk, high reward. I won't go into the ins and outs of the concept here because we don't have time, but that's just kind of one of the terms that you really have to understand before you even begin putting your idea onto paper. And there's so many valuable resources such as information sessions like this, but I also came across a number of personal blogs of other people who had been through the process before. Some people have even shared their application online, and some universities also might have a repository of successful applications. There's really valuable YouTube videos that are explaining some of the key concepts. And there's also some kind of third-party organizations that kind of work as consultants that can assist you in putting together an application. They can be quite expensive and you might not have the resources to work with them, but they often will have an open-facing online website that often will kind of talk through some of these key concepts. And that just gives you another space in which to try and understand what they're really asking for as part of the ERC. And just going back to the point about finding other applications online, that was incredibly valuable because I found applications from all sorts of areas, none of which had anything to do with what I was proposing, but it gave me that insight around how other people had kind of pitched that level of ambition, and also insight to more kind of fine-grained things around how they'd designed their work packages, how they'd justified their resources and things like that. So that was incredibly valuable. The second point I want to highlight here in terms of putting together the written part of the application is to really draw on your networks and think about that quite strategically, because the point here is to have excellence. It's to be incredibly ambitious and to be groundbreaking. So there's not going to be a group of researchers who have already worked in this area before. You're very likely going to be bringing together different methods, different concepts, theories, areas of literature that haven't been intersected before. So there's not going to be an obvious set of reviewers or, within your network that you can ask to provide feedback on your work. But what I tried to do is reach out to people who I felt were experts within the specific areas. So then they say a specific area of a certain method I was using, a certain theory, all of those sorts of things. So then I could bring that back and think about how that intersected with what I was trying to do. And then my final point here is draft, draft, draft. And when you think you have a really solid, strong application, draft, 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 draft again. I had about 50, 60 drafts, and every morning I was waking up and really dedicating the time to read through at the sentence level, paragraph level, and the overall structure to make sure what I was arguing was as clear as possible, because it's one thing to have the idea, it's another thing to articulate that to the review panel. So moving then to the second stage of the application process. So you submit the written application and then you get invited to do an interview and a presentation. So each panel is slightly different, but I was invited to do a 5-minute presentation and then had a 15-minute Q&A. And here, because the time is so tight, my motivation was to keep things as simple as possible rather than to get too bogged down in the detail, because I just wasn't going to have enough time to really talk about the nitty-gritty, fine-grained aspects of the project. I really wanted to sell myself as the person who needed to do this research, the most obvious person to do what I was proposing, as well as highlight the real significance of what I was proposing and be really enthusiastic, engaging, memorable as well. I did this through coming up with a very simple 5-minute presentation that kind of sold those two aspects, sold myself and the idea. And then also where most of my time was spent in terms of preparing for the final stage 2 was in coming up with as many possible questions that could possibly be asked as part of the interview, and determining as strong as possible that I felt were as strong as possible answers to those questions. And I think I had probably about 50, 60 questions, and I had answers to them that I could answer in about 60 seconds or less than 60 seconds, because your panel are going to have quite a number of questions that they want to ask, and they're going to get quite frustrated if, because you've gotten too bogged down in the detail, they've not had enough time to actually answer those questions. One thing I really recommend is to organise mock interviews, and again, drawing on your networks, making sure the panels that you organise are quite diverse, and that will be really valuable in not only building your confidence to answer questions on the spot, but also identifying new questions that you hadn't thought of before. And you might not have an answer to that question right there in the mock, but you've got that space then to go away and actually come up with an answer. And that was really valuable also in getting a sense of which questions were coming up again and again, so then I could have more confidence that they'd probably be asked, and the questions that might kind of not be as obviously asked by most people on the panel. And really my final point here is just enjoy the process. If it's such a valuable thing to be involved in. If you get invited to stage 2, you're you're kind of competing is a horrible word, but you're up against some of the strongest researchers in the world. So it's an amazing achievement to having made it to the final stage, and you can very likely reuse that application if you aren't successful through the ERC again or to another fund. So just enjoy the process and try and use it as a learning opportunity. So thanks so much, and I'm going to pass back to Nishant now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. I think that was an excellent presentation, and we could actually see the process that you went through. And I'm sure there are several questions that are coming through for you as well. So please keep your questions coming in the Q&A section, not on the chat section, and we will come back after Volker's presentation. So now we will move into Professor Volker Hessel, who is an ERC Synergy grantee, and he will explain why he applied for the Synergy grant and how he did it. Over to you, Volker.
Thank you, Nishant. Hello, all. I will give similar information as Anna has given, but I have a middle part, which is about our project. It's actually the original slides which we showed in the interview. It might also help you to see this original information, yeah? But first, to answer the first question I'm supposed to answer. Let me see, should come. Yeah, why did I do it? Okay, I was successful to my surprise with an ERC Advanced grant and proof of concept, and also an FET Open grant, which is also a great instrument. So I thought, okay, that works pretty well. Let's go for ERC Synergy grant. I love fundamental or high-flying science with a long view, with a big picture, with impact, yeah. I don't love too much tiny detailed things. Yeah? So think big. That is what you always hear when people talk about ERC grant. And I had a topic in mind which I thought was great, and we headed for a large national grant in the Netherlands with one of the applicants, and we were rejected. So I was so disappointed. I thought I go to a forum where I have a better reception, maybe better referees. And I thought that is ESC synergy, and we did it. So we kept the topic and got it funded. We have colleagues, obviously, to go to four. I love collaborative research, team research, although sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes it's easier to make everything alone. But finally, working in a team is great, like in a family. And I love programmatic research. ESC is programmatic. It's a project, actually. It's a program. And it's often interdisciplinary, not necessarily, but I love it. And it's a grant scheme with impact and momentum. Yeah? Our grant now goes for 7 years. Yeah, it's really long. Yeah, so I mean, retrospective. I mean, Australia. I can keep relations with Europe. It was mentioned you have to be in Europe naturally. Now, how did I do it? I talked to a good colleague and friend, and simply decided to go. We then added a person which I know well and another person which I didn't know. So I made a cold start, but I thought he is actually the one which we need here. We decided early on the proposal lead, yeah, so this is now a team grant, not like with Anna, so not alone. So you have to make some decisions. We had actually not so many meetings as you might thought. I remember one kickoff meeting for sure. I don't remember a second physical meeting. We had a few online meetings and one meeting when we were selected for interview. So you can do it quite lean finally. We had initial brainstorming discussion, but then we worked. Anna said draft, yeah. Talking a lot is nice, but you have to 1,000 times revise the text. Yeah, the text has to be more perfect than a book. The proposal was a writing mode. I feel one has to make major work. Yeah, it might also work if all four work together, but in our case, he was overriding any text from us, and we allowed him to make it homogeneous. Yeah. We made a list, I think that was mentioned by Anna, of all questions we could imagine. We had a document of 30 pages of questions, and we had an answer. We wanted to be very sure if we are asked how many percent CO2 do we reduce, we all give the same answer, 82%, for example. Not one says 90% or one says 70%. That would be a catastrophe. Yeah? So we agreed on key messages and key data. We agreed who has to talk, how to signal that, and not that we stand there, that two persons talk at one time. So an interview with a team is different to an interview of one person, and we wanted to ensure that also everybody is speaking. Yeah? An interview with a team where only one guy talks leaves a bad impression probably at the audience. Now the next slide, I'll go very quickly because there's only 10% and I'll make some conclusion. That was the team which we had, Italy, Belgium, England, and I'm co-located in England because at that time Australia was not eligible. Meanwhile, they are since 2019. The title of our grant is given, and here you see that it was probably the essential thing to say in one sentence what we are doing. Okay, admittedly, that is a long sentence, but you win and lose on the first page on the ESC, like in any grant, I think. So we have to make very clear that this is groundbreaking and that only you can do this. There's nobody else who can do it. And here's even a team. Only the team can do it. You have to knock a bit on those topics like translational, transformational, mega trending, sustainability. So we tried it in our way to make it clear. You have to say in layman's terms, Anna said this, you should be aware that even the best committee has a lot of generalists because you're always on a special topic. And most of the people will not really understand what you're doing. So you have to make it clear. You have to bring it over in good terms. Then we made clear why us for. We have here a graph, time and space. I don't explain what it means else, but everybody of us sits at a different time and at a different space. So and we made clear that this all has to come together. Very small, very big, and how the fields work. You see also the graphics, which are mainly made by the coordinator, are on a high standard, as Anna said. If you don't have a good graphic designer, you better buy one. And it finally makes a difference today where everybody is writing great proposals. So the last finish makes a difference. Now, I worked, just to say what I did, I worked on ammonia. This is an eminent topic. You see here from a company data, how many millions of tons are produced, how many 10,000 people work on it, how many billions market share. So you have to make clear why your topic is so interesting, and but it's naturally excellence, as we heard. It's not only economic impact, and that's what I did in the grant, because we are not at the end, but almost. I had 5 postdocs, 6 PhD. So you have really a big group, and I worked on all kinds of fascinating plasmas without going now in detail, and we can still work a little bit more. Now, we also showcased here to 500,000 people at the Royal Adelaide show the results of our ESC, and still you see here, you have to be plain. We made it clear what we do for children by building architecture landscape models, and had a lot of discussion with children and families about our ESC grant. So that is very nice. Now, let me give the last 3 slides, what we did before the project. It's a grant scheme which is not existing in Australia and New Zealand. We have Center of Excellence for those who know laureates. We don't have this. ESC is different, yeah. There might be similarities, but it's a great scheme. The grant writing preparation was finally not so much work, but okay for me, but for the coordinator. So if you join a team, and the Australians have to join, as we heard, you're probably not the coordinator. That doesn't make too much sense. So it's not so much work as other schemes, I find. Important is to have the right team and topic, to start early, not to do in a hurry. That never works well. You have to write programmatically. You have to separate from tasks and objectives and all those project things. And you have to write for non-experts, generalists, plain layman terms. You have to get a good interview and train. We heard this, we also did it. And be aware of your true stance. Don't play anything. Sometimes that happens. If you're not authentic, I feel you will not win it. And always a question, why is this topic? Why be aware there are 1,000 good topics, why your topic? The second last slide is here. During the project, I love to investigate fundamental issues, as I said, over a long time, 7 years. At scale, with the budget, you can have 10 million. You can even ask for extra budget for equipment, so you can go to 11 or 12 billion. That is quite something, like the laureate here. It's a great experience for the student and postdoc. We've all come together. We have a very big photo. We have 40, 50 people together. Even in such luxury state, nothing goes without problems. We had problems. It is normal. Team formation is fine art. It's not easy always. It's great engagement. I have so many contacts and outreach opportunities. This is one of them, by the way, thanks to Nishant. We can do a multiplicity of tasks and what is it called in Australia, ambassadorial activities, which is a great thing. And administration for me is lean, thanks to the University of Warwick. I often hear complaints from people about this, but I cannot confirm that it was easy. And I'm really at the end after the approach, because we're already looking after. It's a seed for follow-up funding for startups, new ideas. We have seen 400 startups. It can shape your career. I should reformulate this, not can. It will shape your career. And I have more contacts than I had ever, more sense for impact. And this project remains always present and active in my CV. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Volker. It is really inspiring to look at your journey of going from advanced grant to proof of concept and to synergy grant. So I'm sure that a lot of others who are attending this session, just like us, are getting inspired by what you have been doing with the ERC. Thank you. I can see there are a lot of questions, but I must say that we have very limited time from our esteemed guest speakers, so I'd not be able to respond to all of them. Of course, I see that there is a lot of interest. If you think that your questions were unanswered, and if you feel that there is a need for us to respond to it, please feel free to write to us, and I'll be more than happy to write to you the response, or we'll get our speakers to help respond to you. With that, please join me in thanking our amazing speakers for today, Benjamin, Anna, and Volker, for their time. I'm sure our audience got a lot of useful insights. A quick request to all of you, a survey will appear on your screen when you leave the webinar. It has 2 questions and will probably take you 10 seconds to respond to it. Please give us your response so that when we do such webinars in the future, we can take your feedback into account. To wrap up, please allow me to reiterate to keep an eye on our social media platforms to get notified of such informative webinars in the future. Please bear in mind also that you will receive the slides and the recording of the session. So if you missed something, do not worry on that. Now, that brings us to the end of today's session and signing off and wishing you a good week ahead. And thank you very much from our end and also from our speakers from Europe as well as from Adelaide. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.